Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Oitzinger, and will be the moderator for today's session. Welcome to the WisDOT Road to Efficiently Creating Plan PDFs presented by Steve Popke. Steve has been with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation since 2014. Steve works within the Bureau of Project Development as a methods development engineer. Currently, Mr. Popke assists with developing design model standards and specifications for sharing electronic design data with construction contractors. Prior to his career at WisDOT, Steve worked in the civil engineering consultant industry in Wisconsin as a design engineer and project manager. Thanks again to all our sponsors for helping make this virtual workshop happen again this year. We really appreciate it. Remember to complete the evaluation for the session. A link for the evaluation will be provided at the end of the session. Completion of the evaluations are needed to qualify for your professional development hours. Thank you, and let's start today's session.
This session is to go over the plans production process. I won't go over the specifics of creating specific sheets, but rather I'll review the components and the tools that we have available to help you efficiently put together plan sheets that'll produce the most consistent output. The first thing we recommend is to go to the FDM under Chapter 15 Plans Preparation and go to Section 15.5. Under here, you'll see Attachment 3.3 for the file and layout naming standards. If I scroll down to that attachment, you can see in Attachment 3.3, we list in a table the sheet type and then the corresponding file name. After that, scrolling down a little further, we'll also see the layout naming standards. So for an example, if we had a lighting sheet with this name, our layouts would be numbered as follows. Using this naming convention will help later on when organizing your sheets and assembling your plan PDFs. The next thing I would do is create the sheet set. I can access this from the Home tab, under the palettes, and then it's just this little roll of paper here. So I can select that. I can also enter in SSM into the command line for Sheet Set Manager. From the drop-down, I can create a new sheet set. I'm going to start with an example sheet set based off our WisDOT setup, so I'll hit Next. And then I can select the sheet set using an example. So this is our WisDOT setup, and this is the path to our WisDOT example sheet set. Click Next. I'll give it the project ID number here, enter description if you'd like, and then select the location where you'd like to save your sheet set, usually within the Sheets Plan folder under your project. And select Next. And this is just a confirmation of the setup that it's going to provide. Reiterates that it's based on the WisDOT sheet set, or it's going to be just reaffirmation of everything, and select Finish. And then you end up with a hierarchy of our WisDOT plan set. Just as an example, this information at the bottom is driven by the sheet set. So this will fill in the ID, highway, and county. And then in this area here, this will be pulling its values from subsets. So if I left click on here and go to Properties, what you're going to want to fill in here is the county, the highway, and the project ID, and the plat number if that's applicable. And then it'll populate those areas. If I go back to this sheet set that's already created, you can see that this field is being pulled from this subset. I'm going to close that for now and just go to a blank file, just like I was starting out. To create a new plan sheet, the first thing I would do is start from our WisDOT Sheets tab. And these are the tools and components available to help you efficiently put together plan sheets. To begin, say I was creating some traffic control sheets. I'll go down to the traffic control button to load that panel. And from there, I'll have my main traffic control basic elements that would make that up. And there's some other tabs here for different blocks, other things you can use within your traffic control sheets. But the nice thing is if I wanted to start a brand new sheet, I could create a brand new file. So I'll just do that by selecting on that. Creates a new file, and that's going to have the template. It's going to be based on the template that's needed for our sheets, which is the design start. Now that I've started that new file, now I can create my sheet. I can do that under the sheet layouts. Sometimes they take a little bit of time to load. And these are all the different sheet layouts that are pre-built and available. So if I was going to have a sheet, say at a traffic control, maybe it's 100 scale, I would select that. And now it's going to ask me if I want to enter that in. I'll say yes to that. And now it creates that sheet. Now I'll go back to the model space and make sure my annotation scale is matching what my sheet scale is at, just so everything is consistent for my text and line work. It's very important to know that WisDOT provides its templates with the bare minimum within the template to support our Civil 3D styles. So what that means is a lot of the text styles and components aren't initially included in the WisDOT template, so there's less overhead, but they can be added later. So say if I go over here under dimensioning or multi-liters and I do this drop down, you can see I only have the standard dimension or just the default multi-liter. I don't have all the WisDOT multi-liter styles that have been created. So I'm going to go to add components and just add all components. And now all that information will be loaded into the drawing. And this is all the AutoCAD components. Now if I drop this down, you can see I have the dimensions for different sizes, different multi-liters. Sometimes these will take a little bit of time to load. So now all that is within my DWG. Another handy way to access our WisDOT components is either through, I can set my text style size here. This opens a dialog box. I'll drag over here. Has all the fonts that WisDOT uses in their plans production process. These are all Windows TrueType fonts. We do not have any special fonts or anything created beyond that. And this allows for, it's easier to manage, plus it also provides for searchable text within our PDFs. So if I could do this, and I could set the size. Sometimes it's hard to know, what the size is that you need for a particular sheet. And the nice thing about our palettes, if I go back to our traffic control palette, it tells me, generally you're going to use Calibri 0.07 for your text. But if you got really tight spaces, use no 6. Same with our dimensions. So it kind of guides you along as far as what text sizes should go and fonts should go in that particular sheet. You can also access our components from our palettes. Say if I wanted to add in a particular line type or a multi-liter, I would select the multi-liter palette. And now I have all the different types of multi-liters, different sizes. This is for title sheet, typical sections, plan sheets. Those notes are multi-liters that you would commonly have on your sheets. So there's a lot of pre-built palettes available to make it easy to add this information to your sheets. And then once you are done creating your sheet, you can always go into the command and just purge, out all those unused items that are now in your file that you no longer need. You can just do a purge all. So that covers how we can load different components into our drawing or set up the drawings. The next thing to consider is the appearance of the entities in our file and how they will look when they are plotted out. For WisDOT, our templates are based on a CTB plot style tables, otherwise known as the color dependent plot style tables, since version 2018. There is a plot style for each of the 256 index colors, and the collection of these plot styles make up the plot style table. Therefore, the color of the layer or the object determines what the plot style is. The plot styles are used to define the output color, whether it be black, grayscale, or plain color, of an object. When an object color is set as bilayer, the plot style that corresponds with that layer is used. Each plot table is used for creating a specific plot output. As you can see on the screen here, I have them broken down as far as the 3 plot style tables that WisDOT uses and has created. The last 2 here, the WisDOT black and the WisDOT color, are just as they are in the name. The black one, all the colors show up as black. And for the color, all these colors show up as the color that they are, or the index color. The third one, and the most commonly used one, is the WisDOT standard CTB. And this one is broken out into different categories that will produce black and gray output. As you can see in this diagram here of the index colors, we've broken down the colors into different ranges as they apply for different desired output. If a color ends in 1, or this band here, those show up as gray and are used for our E layers, or those for existing entities, say in our topo files or utility files. Color 21 through 29, that's the medium gray for some of our old mapping files, those here. 240 through 249, those are gray for the county maps, let's say used in our title sheets. 250 to 254, those are the optional gray shades. Say if you need a darker gray or a lighter gray, those can be assigned a color of 250 to 254, and then 255 is for plotting white. And everything else that is outside of these bands will plot black. So all these colors here you see here will plot black. If a color is not defined in the plot style or in the plot style table, that will plot out as plain color since it's not defined in the table. Say you have a color of faded orange or salmon color that shows up in the index color of 21. This color can then be changed to a true color with RGB value of these 3 different colors that make up the same color. Once this layer is applied the true color, as you see here, any objects on this layer will now plot in color. If I go into my options, under Plot and Publish, Plot Style Table Settings, here's the 3 tables that we have in our template. Take a look at the WisDOT standard. I'm just going to open that up just so you can take a look at what that looks like. And in tabular view, now you can see if it's color 1 in the table, it's going to plot out black. So let's take a little closer look at that. Under index, this is what all our plotting is based off of. If it's 1, Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then up here is all the colors that end in 0. Here's all the ones that end in 1. And this is the even half, and this is the odd half. So as we scroll through this table, you can see, I have, there I have one that ends in 1. So for our plot style table, this is going to plot in gray. And this continues on. Get to some of these higher up ones. As you saw in that table, again, number 1, now we get into the area reserved for our county maps. We have different shades of gray for those colors from 250 to 255. So as you can see, we use the colors to determine the output, but the line types and the weights, those we defer to how things are set up within our layers. If a color does not fall within these colors, 1 through 255, then the plot style table doesn't know what to do with it, and it'll just plot out color, as you would see it on the screen. So the nice thing about this setup is I don't need a bunch of different plot style tables to control the look of my output. I can change the color in the layers, and that will control the look of my output. As you can see here, I have all my existing entities. Those end in 1, those will be gray shade. These are different types of gray. If I get into my proposed type of work, let's look at the roadway. Now these are the different colors. And this information will plot out in black. I would say the vast majority of our objects are based off of by layer. So that's the other handy thing of having this plotting driven by the layer colors, is if I have different styles or objects, but those are set to by layer. So if I go to settings and I want to take a look at my alignment styles, how about an existing alignment? As you can see here, the different components, those are all set to by layer. So if I change the layer color, the color of this layer, that's going to reflect into the look of the output. Another handy thing with this setup is we can create layer states. And what a layer state is just a snapshot of the current layer settings. So if I had certain colors for certain layers, those could be preserved in a layer state and brought back later if needed. Before I change a layer state or apply a layer state, I'm going to want to preserve the look of my existing output. To do that, off the WisDOT Sheets tab, under the Manage panel, drop down. If I go to my Manage Layer States, I can add a new layer state. I'm just going to call this one Original, just to preserve the look of the output that I have it right now. I can hit close. Now that everything as it looks right now is saved in the original layer state. If I wanted to change these utilities to color, I can do that through one of our pre-built layer states. If I go to the Manage panel again, Layer States palette, within this palette, we do have different layer states, particularly for utilities depending on the type of plan sheet or exhibit that you're putting together. Say if it's for utility coordination or some sort of display, these can be applied. We also have layer states for different workflows regarding the surfaces or your county maps as they're brought into your title sheets. So for this one, if we take a quick look at what our utilities look like right now, you can see the utility based off this filtering. Our existing utilities have colors that end in 1, which means these utilities will plot out in gray as you saw in that plan sheet. After I apply this layer state for utilities plotting color, and I'll uncheck a few of these boxes here just because I don't want those to apply to our layer state, just because I don't want that to take effect as we apply this layer state. I'll uncheck those, apply the WisDOT utility layers and color layer state, and pick restore. And now you can see my utilities show up in color, and my layers now have the RGB colors assigned to those layers. So just by changing the colors that apply to these layers, I can control the output of the color. This layer state comes in handy, say if I was doing cross-section sheets and I wanted to apply this layer state for my utilities to show up in color. The downfall is if I applied this layer state and save this drawing, any of the files that I reference this utility file into from now on, my utilities are going to be in color, which you don't usually want within your plan sheets used for construction. So we have another way to handle showing color for elements that are brought in through an X-reference. Some things to note about the visual characteristics of an XREF. XREFs have unique XREF layers when they're referenced into a consuming file. XREF layers inherit their current layer state of the saved source file when they're inserted into another file, but the appearance does not stay synchronized with the source drawing. The appearance of an XREF can be changed in the consuming drawing without changing the source file, and the XREF layer state can be modified in the consuming file, and that doesn't change the layer state, how it appears in the source file. So I'm not going to save this file. Say if we went to this project overview file, and right now I wanted to add that utility information to this project overview file. I would go to our WisDOT sheets, load XREF on layer. And what this is going to do is it's going to add that information to a specific layer, and that layer is created based off from the name of the file. So if I have base layers, utility file, I'm going to add that. And it adds that information on there. As you can see, the utility file is X-referenced. And then within our layer manager, I'll just show it as all, just so you can see the layer, how it was brought in. And now that layer is brought in with the name of the XREF prefix and then the name of the file. So what if I wanted to change the look of the output of my XREF within this file without affecting the source utility file? Say I wanted to show these utilities in color. Before I make any of those changes, I want to save my current layer state. So again, I'll go down to my Manage Layer States and add a new layer state. I usually just call it Original, so I can always go back to that one, and I know that's kind of the base that I can work off from. Next, I'll go to our WisDOT Sheets tab under our Layers tool, Convert Layer Colors. And this loads all the filters, the layer filters that I have in my drawing. And I can say if I want to change utilities, I can go to Utilities Existing. And that loads all those layers that are within the existing filter that are XREFs. So I can select all of these. Now I want to change them from an index color, or something that's going to plot out gray, to a true color that's going to plot out in color. I also have other options within this tool as far as switching colors from true to index or defining a specific color. I can also load a layer state that I already have. So I'm just going to call this color utilities. And then I think I'll just put xref after it just so I know how that was applied. Then I'm going to create that new layer state. And I'm going to apply that to all my layers, or my selected layers. And make sure all these are applied. And select apply. It says it was successful. Let's take a look. If we go to our output now, and now we can see our utilities are in color. These might be a little muted because it's going from, the index color that kind of has a muted value now to a true color. So you could always change these colors to other colors as well. Now say if I didn't want to apply these colors anymore as this xref is set up, I could always go back to in my layer manager. As you can see here, I'll just go down to this, our existing utilities xref. As you can see, those are all in the true color and the little bit muted colors. So you can always change these if you'd like. But I'll revert this back to how the xref originally came in. I can right click, go to reset xref layer properties, and I'll just do for all layers. And then that'll reset the xref for the utility file back to the original colors. And you can see here in the layout sheet that was now those are back to gray. So now once we have our sheets looking how we want them to, now we're ready for some output or plotting our information. Say if I go to this construction detail file, I have some sheets here. Now it's ready to plot these out. And in order to do that, I can go to my output tab. Next I'll select plot to plot a single sheet, and in here I can set up how my information will be plotted. Important to note that WisDOT has two plotters set up for PDF and DWF output. I'll touch on DWF output a little bit later, but just to let you know, these are the two plotters that you should be using. I know other ones are available as far as PDF or Bluebeam or Adobe, but our WisDOT plotters have been specifically copied from Autodesk plotters and then just modified slightly for WisDOT output. You do see other plotters available, Bluebeam PDF, Adobe PDF, but these are just generic plotters for these particular outputs, and you're going to get the best results using the WisDOT plotters. So you always want to pick the one that says WisDOT in front of it. Page sizes. We have our WisDOT page sizes. Different sheet scales. Here you would assign your plot style table. So instead of having to go through this and set this up for each sheet, it'd be really handy if we could save that, and we can. And that's through the page setup. And WisDOT already has page setups created. So in order to access or add those page setups to our drawing, and then go to our WisDOT Sheets tab, within the plot configuration panel, we have a page setup palette. And within here, we have many page setups that have already been set up for typical output, say for different exhibits or 11 by 17 plan sheets, larger sheets, roll plots, and different displays, and then also for our plot sheets. Currently, these aren't in the drawing, so I need to select it to add it to the drawing. Now that that's selected, I can assign that to my different layouts. And that opens this multi-page setup WisDOT tool. As you can see here, these are the layouts that are within my drawing, and these are the page setups that are available within my file. Next, I'll select all the layouts that I want to apply this page setup to, and select Apply. As you noticed earlier, these didn't have any page setups applied, and you just saw the layout name. But now that the page setup has been added to those layouts, that's what shows up after the layout name. So I can close that. Say if I want it's a little off the screen, I realize, but under Page Setup Manager, you can see that these are applied to the layouts. So say I wanted to print these, all these construction detail sheets all at once. I go to my output under Batch Plot, and now it shows all the different layouts within that file. I don't want the mouse space, so I'll just delete that out. I can also add additional files and layouts. They'll show up in here. These are the layouts. My page setups that I assign show up. I want to set this to PDF and then the WisDOT PDF, very important for this PDF preset. Under Publish Options, meet FDM standards, we can change this to 300 for the DPI. Also very important is to capture the fonts in the drawing. That way, if there's a font that you added in that file that Adobe won't know how to read or pick up, those fonts are within the PDF itself, and they don't have to go to an outside source to obtain them. So this is a critical component. You can also check create bookmarks if you wanted to. It'll create a bookmark for each layout, and then you can go back and delete those you don't need for your bookmarks for your plans, but we'll just leave this as is. And then you could publish, and then you'll choose the location where you're going to publish that PDF to. Another way we can plot is going back to Sheetset Manager. And Sheetset Manager isn't the plotting engine. I mean, this helps organize our files, shows what files we're in, but we can also access the batch plotting through the Sheetset Manager. If I go down to Publish dialog box, it takes a little bit because it's reading all that information. Get this out of the way. So now same thing. The nice thing about this is it takes all the sheets that are in your Sheetset Manager, so they're already organized, they're already in the right order. Again, we'll set this to PDF, WisDOT PDF. You got the options again that you can set like I showed before. Usually if you access this through Sheetset Manager, these will come up as none. It's just going to take whatever page setup or settings each layout was assigned. I can always go in here and assign a page setup. Say if I pick the PDF, and then I'm going to just select all my sheets, Shift, select, right click, and change page setup, and then I can just apply that to all of them. So no matter what page setup I had in my layouts, I could just manually assign them through here as well. And then I could publish out of here. That's fine if you want to publish through Civil 3D. One way to make this plot even faster would be to saving our sheet list out to a DSD file. So if I hit save, and I'll save this sheet out to a drawing set description file, I can save that, and then this just saves this whole setup. Well, what do I use the DSD file for? To do that, I can go to a free program that Autodesk has called TrueView. I just need to open one file just to get it to open up. Doesn't doesn't matter what file it is. And now I get access to this ribbon or these menus up above. Now when I go to batch plot, I can open up that DSD file. I don't want that current list. Open up the DSD I just made. Or replace all the sheets. Yes, keep sneaking off my screen. And the advantage of using TrueView is this is just a viewer, so you're not going to get the open for edit that Civil 3D does. When Civil 3D opens the files, it's going to, each time it opens that file to plot those layouts out, it's going to check the XREFs, check the DREFs. It's also going to check your reference template connections. So all that stuff's going on in the background each time you open up that file. Whereas with using TrueView, you're just using this for read-only, so it plots out a lot faster. Same setups in here. Publish options again. You can update those as well. Again, make sure that the fonts are captured. And now I can just print this whole thing out. This sheet set had 160 layouts. When I was testing plot times for this project, I was able to plot all the sheets out of TrueView in about half the time it took plotting out of Civil 3D. Now this may vary depending on the project, but overall, from what we've seen, TrueView will plot out output much faster. If you had any updates, you could just go back to Sheetset Manager, save out that DSD, and replot that if you want to plot the whole plan set. If you're only just plotting out parts of it, you could always just use the batch plot right out of Civil 3D. I mean, that's fine too if you want to break it up per sections in your plan. Another thing, as I mentioned before, there's also another driver that WisDOT supports called the DWF. And that's Autodesk's native format or driver that's comparable to PDF. It's their version of PDF basically, but it's built specifically for Autodesk products, so it's going to have a much closer integration with the output that you're going to get when you plot. You don't always need to use the DWF, but it comes in handy if you're having issues, say with fonts not coming out or some imagery that's not plotting correctly. So that is another option to do that. And in order to utilize that DWF, just going to go to that publish again and back to the dialog box. And now where I have all these page setups, I'm just going to reassign those page setups to use a DWFX page setup. I already had loaded that, so now I can just add it in here, and that just changes all those in there. And make sure this is DWFX. You don't have to worry about the publish options in here. And now I can publish that. And that'll create a DWF file. So I would do that and save out this DWFX file. So how would I publish that though? I'll just cancel out of that. Autodesk also has another program called Design Review, and everybody has it that has an Autodesk product like Civil 3D. So this you would already have. Let me get this to show up on the screen here a little better. There we go. It's just a light viewing and markup tool, but you can plot out the DWFs to PDFs from here. So I can open that up. I'll open up one of the ones, some of the ones I was using for testing here. And now I have my whole plan set in here. Different files. If I want to print that out, I could go down to Print, Batch Print Wizard, and then just walk through this wizard. So even if you did have, say you had broken up your plan into multiple sections through the batch plot, you could still combine them within this designer view software and add them together. So here I'm just gonna add this single file that I had. I just add that to the list of files, and then those files would accumulate in a list here. And then I would go to Print Setup, bring this back over, and now I can just use my Adobe PDF printer, Bluebeam. I mean, the DWFs has captured all the, I guess, intelligence out of your CAD files. Now it's just a straight conversion from DWF to PDF. So now I just go to Properties, my Layout, Landscape, Advanced, change this to 11 by 17, ratchet this down to 300, say OK to that. Paper quality, I can just leave that as color. These are set up to go to grayscale though. Everything looks good in here. As you can see, I have 160. So that's ready to go. And then I can just say OK. And then it'll just get that all set up for us. And next is to basically print. So that's designer view. So in summary, we have a few different options as far as batch plotting files through Civil 3D using the WisDOT configurations. We can batch plot to a PDF from Civil 3D. We can use the batch plotting out of Sheetset Manager to plot to a DSD file and then plot our PDFs from TrueView for quicker printing. Or we can batch plot through Sheetset Manager to a DWF file and then plot those files from Designer View to PDF. So there are some options depending on your printing preferences. And just to clarify, Sheetset Manager isn't doing the actual plotting. The layouts are being published through the batch plot. Another thing to note is once you have your sheets or your layouts kind of set up, or you've added some text and everything's looking fine, to get these sheets to print even faster, like I mentioned before, is you could turn off the connection to look at the reference templates when these files load. To do that, you can access any WisDOT tab and go to the Manage panel, and under DWG, this WisDOT reference template, it's a toggle on and off. So if I select that to toggle it off, and then it'll say the reference template update is now disabled. So that applies to each file individually. So when you get your plan sheets, to a certain point, you could always turn that off, and that'll also make your printing faster, and also accessing your files in general. They'll open up much quicker. And you can always turn that back on later if you needed to, or update a style. So that's all I wanted to review today. We've kind of went over how the sheets are set up, how our plot tables work, and how colors and the look of the plot is controlled. Also some different avenues for printing out the PDFs using our WisDOT setups, our drivers, and how to do that faster using the free program of TrueView or Designer View. The key is, we should be plotting these out to an image and then having a raster PDF. These should all be vector PDFs that have searchable fonts, and by using all our WisDOT setups, we'll have our output looking correct. some of the things we can do. Another thing we can do to print faster would be, printing directly from a hard drive or from a LAN versus, through the VPN. It's always a good idea to have those files as close as you can when, relatively speaking, when you're plotting things out. So hope you found this helpful, and thank you.